everyone, Alexa Donne here, and today I am going to be walking you through how to write a synopsis. The dreaded synopsis. Nobody likes synopses, or if you do, let me know down below in the comments. Hello, you are a unicorn. So what is a synopsis? Well, this is something that a lot of agents and editors are going to ask you for. Not all agents require them with a query package, and so you can kind of avoid synopses for a pretty long time if you're diligent about who you query, but once you get to the having a book deal stage, you can't avoid them anymore. You're going to have to turn in a synopsis eventually for a contracted book or for an option, so you better learn how to write one. And generally, I suggest having one prepared for when you query and not avoiding agents who require synopses, because some of the agents who do are wonderful agents and they do have a reason for asking for one. A synopsis gives an agent or an editor an overall sense of the direction of your project, of how you're taking your idea, your pitch for your book, and developing it. It shows them kind of the main plot beats of a story, the primary characters and what their arcs are, and can help them kind of see if you have problems with where you're taking it or if you kind of know what you're doing. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Alexa, that sounds kind of like an outline. It is not an outline, although a pin in that, if you are a pantser, a synopsis is probably extra terrifying because it's like a cousin of an outline, and yes, you will have to write them even if you are a pantser. So yes, that does mean I write synopses, even though I am a die-hard pantser. I have written them to turn in to my editor and my agent. And honestly, I've kind of gotten used to them and I don't mind them so much, because the beautiful thing about a synopsis, which I know is technically like an outline, but your synopsis can change. The other misconception that I see about synopses is that they are like back cover copy, that they are a blurb, and they are most definitely not. Synopses are not consumer facing. You're not going to be sharing your synopsis with readers. Back cover copy and blurbs are consumer facing. They're more like sales tools, and so you're gonna write them in a very different way. The other misconception I've seen is that a synopsis can be really, really long. That it is a super fine, detailed blow by blow of your story, like literally every single thing that happens in it. That is definitely a misconception that can lead to a long and overdrawn synopsis that isn't going to help you when it comes to agents or editors. So what is a synopsis and how do you write one? So as I mentioned, it is the overarching view of kind of your plot and your characters and the main things that happen in your story. Quite critically, your synopsis will give away the ending of your book. Unlike a query, it is not spoiler free. You go full spoilers in a synopsis. You want to lay out the entire story and include all of the details that build up to that ending. But just like a query, you do want to think about character, conflict, and stakes. Those are the key ingredients that you're going to have in a synopsis. So because of that, you're going to focus very top line, just like you would in a query. You're not throwing the entire kitchen sink in there. You're not talking about every single character who appears in your book and every single action that the characters end up taking. You're focusing on the main character, what they want, you know, their love interest, their antagonist, their best friend if they're important to the plot. You're going to follow the entire main plot, so the A plot, and some B plot elements if they are significant to the conclusion. But you're not going to include every single subplot, every single character. To this end, your synopsis should only be 1 to 2 pages. Now, a one-page synopsis is slightly torturous, especially if you're double spacing. That is just not a lot of words. I actually do single space my synopses so I can get away with a little bit more content, but I think 2 pages is a perfect sweet spot. Most agents are going to ask for 1 to 2 pages, and if they ask for more, hey, you can add a bit more to it, or you just submit a nice and concise synopsis if you already have your 2-pager ready to go. The really important thing to remember is, as you're writing your synopsis, always think, does this piece of information tie into the end? When someone reads my synopsis and they get to me telling them about what happens at the end of the book, are they going to be confused? Will they have a ton of questions because I forgot to include XYZ details in my synopsis. You want to there's a fine balance, and you want to walk that line between details, enough details to give them a sense, but not too many details. I know that's frustrating, but I have some more tips as well as a great resource you can check out that will help you out. Just bear in mind that a synopsis at its essence should be skimmable. It should be very easy for an agent or an editor to take a look at it and read through it in a minute flat. This brings me to my quick tips in terms of like the nitty-gritty of the synopsis, formatting type stuff that are going to make it more readable. The first one is that you should capitalize characters' names the first time that you use them. This isn't a hard and fast rule, but I've seen this used in so many synopses, and I like it because your eye just goes right to it, and it's an easy way to kind of grab out those big names. You can also do this for if you have like a big concept in your book. So for example, if you were writing a synopsis for Divergent, if that were your book, you might capitalize the factions. You also want to keep your paragraphs short and sweet, a few sentences per paragraph, because again, you're not going to be bogging them down with detail, which brings me to how you are actually writing your sentences. Keep them short, keep them sweet, very, very clear and concise. This isn't the place for purple prose. Your synopsis shouldn't reflect the tone and writing style of your novel. It should be a very straightforward summary of your book. At the same time, do pay attention to your sentence structure and try to vary it a little so it's not kind of this by rote, every single sentence starts the same way. You want a little bit of variation and a little bit of pizzazz, just nothing too crazy. It is okay to have a little bit of voice in your synopsis. You just don't want to go overboard. But having a couple of one-liners that contribute to the plot and explaining it can go a very long way. I definitely think it's possible to make a synopsis an enjoyable reading experience, so it is nice to kind of add in a few little things that kind of, move the reader along and get them excited for the story while still communicating critical information. And lastly, you're going to be writing your synopsis in third person present tense. This is the same rule for queries. So a synopsis, it's kind of a cousin to a query in the same way that it's a cousin to an outline. They're all one big happy family of the ways in which we have to summarize our books. And I guess that makes back cover copy. It's like a cousin, but it's kind of like your second cousin who's like maybe like rich and cool. That's a messy metaphor, but definitely you want to think of it that way. Kind of the way you might start a query is going to be similar to the way you might start a synopsis, but then your synopsis will continue on to concisely deliver all of your plot information, whereas a query, you're just going to kind of lead them up to like maybe like the first third of the book to get them, a taste so that they want to read more. The synopsis, you're kind of giving them the whole cake. It's just like the easy bake cake. Me with the metaphors today. You kind of get a sense of what I mean. And then my last quick tip has to do with pulling it all together, and that is once you've written a synopsis for your book, give it to someone you know who has not read the book, and especially if you've not told them too much about it, give it to that person, have them read through it, and ask them, does this make sense? They will help you identify some of the holes in your synopsis, the questions that they have, and then you'll know what is missing. You can also ask them, are there any points where you were bored or confused? And that can help you pull out some of the superfluous stuff that you have put in there that doesn't need to be there. And so yes, my dear pantsers, I am so sorry. You are going to have to learn to write synopses, but let me talk a little bit about kind of how I have approached dealing with synopses as a pantser. So first of all, the weirdest confession, I actually really like writing a synopsis for a book before I start writing a book. And I just know what some of you are gonna say, including and especially my friend Kat. But Alexa, that's an outline. Let me live my truth. Like, let me feel my feelings. I like to write a synopsis before I start. First of all, because it trains me to write synopses because I know I'm gonna need them in publishing, but because by writing a synopsis, you are basically forcing yourself to focus on the top line, most important things about your manuscript. Your main characters, your antagonist, your love interest, so on. Your A plot, your B plot. And working on that doesn't overwhelm me in the way that a detailed outline overwhelms me. So pantsers, I invite you to challenge yourself and learn to write a synopsis. Start with a book you have written, but you'll get into kind of a rhythm and you'll get a sense of it. And I promise you'll get a little bit more comfortable with distilling your ideas for a project that doesn't exist yet and writing a synopsis for it. Once you're at the editor stage, your synopsis can change. Like, your book can change even if you turn in a synopsis to them for something, for a proposal or a contract book. But you want to give them like a sense that you have an idea of what your story is and what all the main elements are. That is what a synopsis is, and that is what a synopsis does. It enables the person that you give it to have, confidence that you're writing a book and the ingredients that you're putting into the book, we're back to the cake metaphor, that you got the right ingredients, that you have the sugar instead of the salt, and that you remembered the baking powder. Yeah, we're going with the baking metaphor. That is kind of it in a nutshell. So lastly, I'm going to leave you with one of my all-time favorite resources for writing a synopsis. Full disclosure, Susan does it better than I do. Like, I've given you this overview, but Susan hands it to you in a blog post. So Susan Dennard has done one of the industry standard guides to writing a one-page synopsis. She has like a form, you can fill in all the details, and she helps you put it all together. And she has a fantastic example. She uses Star Wars as her example for this is how you would write a synopsis. And it is really, really helpful in illustrating, oh, this is how you write a synopsis. So I'm going to link to that down below. This is simply one of the best resources I've ever seen for synopses, so I really hope that it helps you. So that is it. That is, what is a synopsis? Why is a synopsis important? A little tough love for why you need to do them. And actually, I went hard on my fellow pantsers, but outliners. No author actually likes to write a synopsis, so to all of you I say, suck it up, buttercup. Learn to write them. It's not as bad as you think it is. Once you do 1 or 2 or 3 torturous ones, you really get used to it. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will make more of these practical videos on how to do these frustrating, annoying things that you have to do in the business. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, I post new videos 2 to 3 times a week all about craft, writing, the industry, and getting published. Thank you so much for watching, and as always guys, happy writing!